What's up, everybody? This is the Difficult to Please podcast. I'm Erwin.
And this is JV.
This is episode 10? 10 or is it 9?
Oh, I think it's 9.
9.
9.
I thought it was at 10.
It's okay. 10 will be the last one.
10, maybe 11.
Maybe, yeah.
Or it's like 10 plus bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
Anything we can get over 10 would be like an accomplishment.
Yeah. We did it.
Yeah.
Okay. 9. So
we talked about Supreme and hip hop on the previous episode. We're going to shy a little bit away from that for this one. Kind of, I guess.
Kind of. It's more like a rant. This is just something like that's kind of bothering me.
JV old man rants.
Yeah, old man rants.
No, not really.
I'm wearing the appropriate thick cardigan. I can rant. Old man rant.
So what are we ranting about today?
Pretty much we're gonna talk about being too woke. Like the whole concept of woke.
Whoa!
I feel like that term gets so thrown like all the time.
Okay.
And in a way, it's kind of like bothering me.
How so?
Like, just because I feel like everyone has like an opinion about stuff. Like, okay, this kind of has to deal with like a little bit of like political correctness, like being too woke and with stuff like that.
Sure.
And like for political correctness, I understand why. Like that's an issue, right? Like it's fair. It's a given point. But then like the other side is too woke. Like I think political correctness, like people need to address. But being too woke is kind of like a little bit too overboard. You know, like for example, like do you think people like dive too deep in like analyzing like anything nowadays?
I think we're at a stage in culture, and that part, a lot of it has to do with social media that amplifies what opinions you have.
Is it because you have like the platform to like even have an opinion? Like now there's like a million voices that have the chance to like say, this shit sucks. Then like, because people never had that before. It was just not even like AOL chat rooms at the time. It was just newspaper. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like newspapers and reviews and like whatever
writing
social
an opinion op-ed in your local newspaper. Yeah, I mean,
that's Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah,
like, you just blow that shit up.
Yep.
Like, all right, let me just hashtag so I could join this conversation and be like, Game of Thrones season 8 sucks.
Yes.
And it just continues.
Yes.
But I think 8 was good.
But
I lied. Okay, 8 was alright, actually. The end of 8 was like kind of bad. So let's just use Game of Thrones for a reference.
Okay.
So the whole thing with Daenerys at the end.
Okay.
Like a lot of people got really upset about that, right?
Because
like, you know, there was a lot of things that people are saying like, oh, Game of Thrones shows that like it never really like evolved culturally or something like that, like about like, oh, this is kind of like it shows what happens when like women are in power or women are in power or something like that. It just doesn't work out or something like that.
Okay.
Have you read articles like that?
The thing about, especially with cultural criticism around Game of Thrones, I've stepped away from like reading and diving into that because I think what you're trying to allude to, like, and in this episode and in the further conversation, is that it gets too in the weeds. You know, like it's hard to extract and look at the bigger picture when we're thinking about cultural criticism about Game of Thrones. Like for me, it's like I step away, but I mean, the argument that the show or the executive producers didn't care about female characters, like, okay, I can see it, but it's not.
Do you think it's kind of overreaching? Like it's a grab? It's a grab. Like it's like.
That's the thing. It's like you get into the fucking weeds, you do kind of overreach because there's things like, you know how also for like Star Wars,
right?
The last the last one with
The Last Jedi. Yeah, people were actually raging on that shit too.
Yeah, right. They were super irritated that like how it went down or whatever, or like culturally. Like I was okay with it, but there was a lot of people who just didn't like it or whatever.
Right, and I had actually someone break it down to me about the last Jedi, but it wasn't about like the fact that Rey was a Jedi. It was like everything else around it. Like there were certain characters, like Captain Phasma, never got developed. Like she was supposed to be like this big thing, like a big part of the story, and then the director just totally like killed her off, kind of thing. And yeah, like characters like that. And there was like that whole what's her name? That one actress from Westview.
Shout out to fuck, I don't know. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, her. She's cool. You should stick. She's cool. And she got shitted on.
Oh,
you should come back because
what is it?
Worth it. Huh?
That's gonna bug the shit out of me. Westview.
Westview.
Fuck. I'll look it up later. It's gonna be fucking.
Yeah. So okay. So that's what I mean. Being too woke. Like people are really deep diving and like getting into the weeds about like almost every little aspect into like almost anything nowadays. Like whether it's political or like cultural, like you said, like cultural criticism. Like in a way, like I don't mind like addressing it. I don't mind like hearing about it. But then I think it's just the people who like make it like who spread it like gospel that kind of like irritate me or that like that bugs me.
Or is it more like clickbaity content? Like it's just kind of it's just baiting you for a click and for you to read it? Is that the problem? Or is you just talking about like the idea that cultural criticism is just so in the weeds and it's very like minutia at this point?
I don't think it's maybe it's my fault for actually clicking some of these articles, but then at the same time, like I'll kind of like listen to people and they'll just talk about it and they'll really deep dive into it. I'm just like, man, like why do you all take it like YG Inception now? Like there's just layers on layers. I was like, why can't like
yeah? Okay.
In a way, I was kind of like, well, I didn't see it that way. I saw it like ABC and that's it. Then I didn't.
Or do you think that people's like their own kind of perception and the way that they've consumed media so far in 2019 and from school and from out of school, we talked about media literacy here
right on
the podcast in previous episodes and seasons. Plug, what's up?
Stupid.
No, but I'm saying like they've not amassed, but they have the tools, or rather, of cultural criticism. It's just, but then we're at a point where it's just hyper focused, and you're able to, or someone is able to think about something. Fuck, this is like very convoluted. I'm trying to fucking.
No, it's fine. It's a very convoluted thing. That's why I'm ranting about it.
Yeah, because well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that what if it's people that have encountered cultural criticism in a different perspective that we've went through, but then they just think about it in a different way, and it's just very minutia. Because no matter what, people are going to bring their own biases and whatever,
right?
And like how they read into media. And that's why we have so many fucking conspiracy theorists and shit right now, right? I'm trying to wrap this shit up. What's up? And it's like, okay, they bring these experiences and fucking norms, but then you're like, fuck, man, like this is a lot. Like it sounds like everybody's different, but it's like
plausible. Like
fuck, man, it's no, because I'm trying to riff the same idea. Like we are like a very like we're in the weeds about cultural criticism, especially.
Right. Yeah.
Like in talking about Game of Thrones, talking about Star Wars, and any other thing that comes across our content, whether it is blogs and being clickbaity and shit like that,
and like underrepresentation and stuff like that. Well, that's its own thing. Actually, I have nothing against Underrepresentation.
That's why there is a Vietnamese girl in Star Wars. What's up, Westview?
Westview.
It's gonna fuck the shit.
And she's the main character. Woo!
You think she's gonna get a bigger role
in the next episode?
Yeah,
I hope so. Well, at least I hope like she's like part of the cast. Like, I don't see why not.
Kelly Marie Tran.
There you go.
There you go. What's up, Westview? 07.
I didn't want to stereotype like the last name.
No, I didn't want to be racist.
I don't want to be racist. I didn't say win.
Oh shit.
That's one thing I was trying to avoid.
No, okay, but like just to go back on just to continue the topic of being too woke, it's like that one SNL skit where they're like the woke jeans, the woke Levi's or whatever.
Fuck, I didn't see that one.
Or they're just like kind of parodying. Fuck, I can't say it.
They're just parodying.
They're mimicking a Levi's ad, but then they're using all these like woke tropes, and the pair of jeans is like genie pants. I don't know, man. It's just like, yo, I like my jeans woke. Stay woke.
Oh shit.
Reptar.
Licked my hand. I tripped out for a minute. What's up, Reptar? That's woke.
Oh my god. No, but I think we're in a moment where the idea of like the term woke is like, what does that fucking even mean? You know?
Right. Maybe that's like also one thing I want to talk about this episode too. Like, what does it mean to be like super woke? Like part of me thinks it's like, oh, come on, Reptar.
Reptar, get off.
Reptar down. That was a moment.
He misses Uncle JV. He's gonna miss Uncle JV. He's okay.
It's okay. So yeah, like woke.
Term woke.
The term woke, like. So, like, I guess one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about this episode, this podcast too, is like maybe I'm just like not clear what that means now, because part of me thinks it's just like criticism everywhere, and I don't know if it's like a combination of like having a voice and a bunch of self-help books. Like suddenly I read, like, you could read like 10 and you're like, all right, I know how to approach the world, and let me like spread this gospel to like everybody else or something like that. And like maybe when I hear that shit, I kind of just like it's cool, I guess, and like to a certain extent. But then if it comes to a point where you're kind of like pushing out other people, that's when like I guess when it bothers me.
Okay. Like for example,
trying to think of a good example. It's hard just because I haven't like been away for a while. Like the way
in a hyperbolic time chamber or what?
Yeah, like the way I approach my wokeness is like I keep it to myself and I'll go away and that's it. And like be like Yoda or like be like any other kung fu.
That sounds like a fucking like a Zen master. He just fucking
see. That's what I mean. Like just Zen masters are super, like Zen masters and like kung fu masters or whatever. They're so woke that they're like, all right, I'm just gonna abandon society in general. Like,
let me go to a monastery in the mountains,
or like I'll be a clay farm or
what is it?
A ceramics maker. Or something.
He's gonna make pottery.
He's gonna make pottery all day.
Terracotta pottery,
and then somehow also be like a master at the Zen thing. But yeah, like,
what's up? Struggle City, you got it.
No, it's like I'm trying to like think it from like other perspectives too.
Like, what's the other perspective you're concerned about?
It's too much, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's like because everybody has a platform, everybody
can make a YouTube video.
That's why we have fucking so many conspiracy theories.
Alex Jones. Gay trees.
Oh my god, not again. No, but yeah, so there are like, what is too woke? What the fuck, you know? This is like an existential question. We're just gonna keep repeating it and thinking we have the answer and shit. We don't have
I don't think we're gonna have the answer
fuck
to
no.
it. I was just curious about it. I think to a certain, like, we could probably like move on from this soon, but
grasping at straws.
Yeah. Stupid. It's too much. I think people should turn that shit down. But maybe I'm just not aware of it. Maybe like someone could tell me like, oh, you're just not open to like.
Oh man, if someone listens, they're like, JV is so ignorant.
Like he refuses to listen to other things. Like he refuses to listen to like the problems of the world. I'm like, no, it's not that.
JV just listens to Vox and NPR.
Listen to like less opinionated pieces. But yeah, that's it. That's my little rant about being too woke. Yeah, about being too woke.
But then, okay, just to segue into our other ones and our other topic, wokeness is tied to some sort of education, whether that is in the classroom or out of the classroom. Hopefully, and I think this is like my optimistic worldview is that like by the time you leave high school, is that you are able to conceptualize information, fucking be media literate, actually like think about the content in a really critical way and not have to always have a reactionary clickbaity piece, because I think that's where we're at right now. Everything is fucking clickbaity. Everything is
formal.
Always, like a think piece. There's always a take. And full disclosure, we have our own takes, and
yeah.
But we try and be critical of the information and just really slow down and think about what that means to us, love bigger picture things, and all that.
So, do you think like so when I'm like listening to like certain influencers and whatnot, and they're saying like, oh, like stick to this routine or do this. Like I read 4 books a month, or I like educate myself like every week or something like that. Like, would you consider that like being a little like? Would you consider that to wokeness or something like that? If like everyone started following those steps, like everyone, like the average person's like, I'm gonna make it a point to like read 4 books a month or something like that, or whatever. Like educate myself and stuff like that. Like. Every single month.
But what you're describing to me sounds like you're just trying to self-enrich yourself.
Oh, maybe that is actually what I'm saying. No, maybe I saw that like in a negative way, but that's like the way you said it. Like, wait,
you're just you're just trying to read more and educate yourself. Like, what's wrong with that?
There is actually nothing wrong with that.
I mean, you might be. Have to be critical of your content or the things you're reading, but
I guess there is really nothing wrong with that. Just educating yourself.
What? We just cut this episode in half then.
Hey, that's fine.
It's like 20 minutes in.
Yo, making this episode short.
What?
I guess my only my gripe with it is when people try to make it like gospel or like telling other people like.
But that's like what Gary Vee does all the time.
But he doesn't go around telling like you're living like your life wrong. This is maybe I don't know, maybe to a certain extent he does that. But I guess what bothers me when people tell me like oh no, you're living your life wrong. It's like this is what you should be doing and how you should be doing it.
Because that sounds like very like sales pitchy and shit like that.
It does.
There's like. I get that vibe, I think, from the millennial hater, Simon Sinek. I don't give a fuck.
Simon Sinek.
He hates me.
He doesn't hate you. He just wants people to like to know like their purpose and like act on it. Like,
see, that's the thing. It's like, is that being too woke? Because the way you're describing it is like, that's what he kind of does. He like points. He agitates you, and makes pieces of content to make you like
rethink yourself.
Or rethink your like appealing to some kind of value that you're like, I want to improve myself, and then you're like, and you feel shitty.
You're like, oh, I guess I don't value family after all. I just value supreme shit all day.
Here we go again.
I had to do it for you.
It's fine. I don't have anything on Supreme this week. It's fine. It is what it is.
Okay, I'm gonna shit on it then.
Anyways, go for it.
Supreme gotta make their own designs, man. I'm just kidding. That's it. That's my woke part about Supreme.
Well, then, okay. Because I know you wanted to tag team, not tag team, but piggyback education and
self-enriching yourself.
So self-enriching, like, is that...
That's good. I think people should do that more often. Like, I'm all about self-enriching.
So then, okay.
I feel like I just totally backpedaled.
You just It's fine, though. Like,
okay, I totally
you have those moments where you're like, oh, I get it now.
Maybe
like, it's a new perspective. Okay, that's right. Okay.
Maybe this whole episode is like JV wrestling, like information in his head. Like, this is me just getting it out. It's like, but I think it's so bad, but it's also so good for you. And Erwin just has to hear like, JV's crazy ass rant.
What are you talking about? This?
You just backpedaled completely.
Like, all Jamie, you just finished your degree. Yay!
But is it needed?
Okay, then, because I thought that's what we were going to talk about was the value of higher education. Okay. Originally, we were going to have a guest for this episode, or the topic at least, but because of there are bigger things at play, we're doing at least maybe a part 1 to a future part 2 or whatever.
Okay, then I would respect that.
So then, higher education. Now that you finished your bachelor's in healthcare administration, what are your thoughts on just higher education in general, and how have you experienced and approached the system, academia, and all that?
So I don't like the system. I believe in higher education, but I don't like the system. I don't like our current system at all. I think that I think we overvalue college sometimes. I understand if you're coming from an academia point, for me when I think of always academia, I always think of research and people the original point of academia was to expand your knowledge about a certain field, right?
Right.
But then not everyone's like that. Not everyone wants to be so enriched and stuff like that. Some people just want to work. I think some people would rather there should be more options for trade schools and stuff like that. People to learn different skills, different whatever they need to do to accomplish a job.
What we did say in episode or season 1, we did say that.
Yeah, we're more coding classes, more welding classes, more whatever.
Yeah,
it's all good. I don't think we should ever devalue other jobs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then thinking about it now, I am grateful that I took the class. I took the class because it actually I learned more outside of the class other than what I learned in class.
Are you saying you learned more being on the job, or you're just saying you learned by reading and all that stuff?
I think it's hard for hospitals because you really have to reach for a position versus somewhere where it has a little bit more flexibility about climbing up. For me, it's the only way up is becoming a pharmacist.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the issue with the institutions in healthcare,
right?
Especially healthcare. There's maybe some of the engineering stuff.
Yeah, but with engineering, you could learn it. You can learn something. You can build your skills on top of something. For me, I can't really build my skills on top of something. It just expands horizontally. Or maybe not horizontally.
I'm just thinking maybe not computer science, but more the traditional engineering shit. Building civil engineers or aerospace engineers.
Right.
Those people who have PhDs just because they're really good at science,
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. I understand. I kind of understand that because with those science degrees, you're expanding knowledge. You're creatively using your knowledge to build upon principles and stuff like that.
And then in the medical field, it's it's unfortunate in that, and all the entire institution is that somebody like yourself who's worked in the pharmacy for, was it 8 years now?
Yeah, 8 years. Yeah.
8 years, but it's you have a cap because you don't have a degree or an advanced degree.
Right. And even with the advanced degree, I can't even do work in my own department. If I really wanted to go, I would have to shift out, or I'd switch out. I had to go somewhere else. Either I'd have to go to another company, or I'd have to go somehow become a manager or something like that, or move to like corporate or something like that.
Yeah,
like those are my only options. It's crazy, but maybe that is how it is with like. I think that's how it is with hospitals in general. It's like because like
it's
you're meeting like certain regulations. Like there's no room for creativity to like find different horizons over there because you have to meet rules. You have to read like regulations.
Yeah, because it's like regulations and
policy, like
policy and insurances too. You know,
right? So like, you have to like fall in line with that. Maybe it's a little different, like in a different career, or like you can like, all right, let's take a risk. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't do that at a hospital. You're like, let's take a risk here.
Like you can't just show up, you know, tomorrow with your resume like, I'd like to be a doctor, please. You're like, that shit doesn't work.
Like, you know, let's try not giving a patient that because, you know, the opioid crisis and stuff like that. Like,
there's things like that where you're like, you have boundaries within your role. You can't give, you know, certain advice in your role.
Right. Like the best I can do is like train people.
Even though you're qualified for like a certain thing, and then in the time that you've been working, you've learned techniques or you've learned more about certain drugs and all that, but you can't. Exactly. You know about the effects about the X, Y, and Z, but you can't be like, you know, you should probably take this because you're not a fucking doctor or a PA or anything,
or
you know?
A pharmacist. Or anything. Yeah. So I can't do that shit.
You're like, I fill orders, bro.
I fill orders and I commit to them. So yeah, like, but at the same time, like, maybe there are people who are okay with like that, right? You know, there are people who are okay with like line work, and that's fine. Like,
totally fine.
And I understand that. And like the people who like work toward those like positions, like that should be okay. Like, be fine with that.
Do you think your role as a farm tech is one of those roles that would be replaced by automation?
Yes, without a doubt.
Yeah,
easily. Yeah, it can be. I think pharmacists in the future would also get somewhat replaced too. I think in a world they're not gonna need that many pharmacists. Just because I think computer AI will be
Just fucking wrapping all this shit up in one episode. Let's get it.
It's like the recap of the season. But yeah, it's like they will get to that point where they can do that analysis themselves. Like usually you have a pharmacist who like look at labs and stuff like that, or like make judgment calls on like, oh yeah, because of like X, Y, and Z, we don't recommend this.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
It's like a it's like gamer talk where you're like, oh, you have like a fucking aimbot or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you have like, you know, a heads up display that if you're a doctor and you want to prescribe something and you have AI saying like, you know what, actually this person with this XYZ gene and like their family history and shit like that, you should like, probably.
And then like, here's some recommendations.
You know?
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's less thinking, but okay, cool.
Exactly, right? I can see that shit happening in like,
right, because
20 years.
Right,
years.
Right. So, and like, so when I was talking about what I learned outside of, like, when I was doing the degree, right?
Yes.
What actually got me into reading was because when I was reading, like, my textbooks, I'm like, no, there's, like, a lot more, like, real-world application to this. That's what got me into reading in the first place. So I was like, no, I can augment, like, my lessons with, like, different management skills, and that's how I got into, like, finances and blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, shit. I felt like I learned so much more, like, outside of it, in a way.
Okay.
Like my supplementary education with, like, my degree at that time, like, I felt I learned a lot more there, and, like, finding, like, what you should learn, or finding, like, those, like, really rich books and, like, whatnot have been more beneficial to me, more applicable to me, rather than, like, a textbook. Which I guess, like, that's what it should be in the first place, right? Like, the school is supposed to be, like, your guiding line, but not your know-all, right?
With education and from your point of view, because you're able to pick up information and then apply it elsewhere, and
it just helps the education along too.
Yeah,
like it builds up onto it. Like if it says like, oh, hiring should do X, Y, and Z strategy, but then like you'll read a different book where they talk about that, and like they'll give you examples why you're like, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense, rather than like giving me
it's like the
bold definition and like, here it is. Huh?
It's like cross-training your brain.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. It is cross.
Because you're like, oh, hey, like, I can use this principle into the other, like, facets of my life that I... Yeah.
Right. So, okay.
Like, do you think that education should be like that? Or do you think education is like that?
I think it should be like that, unless I totally missed something out in college.
Or unless you're just like a very talented person. You're really good at studying.
Or not even study, or just like a naturally curious person. Like maybe I'm someone who really loves academia and I really want to know like more about it, right? And so that's why I was like,
but aren't you like at this, I don't want to say like weird, but you're at like a very niche spot because you are like a very creative person. At the same time, you're in a very rigid scientific method fucking field. Like this is like this weird juncture. It's very unique, and it's like, is your brain fucking wired the same way that other people's brains are?
Yeah, that's what I'm like wondering too. That's why when I was like finishing all this, I was like, man, like management, like there's definitely room for like creativity in management for sure, right? Like
right.
For my degree. That's why I was like, maybe I need to like branch out from like a hospital or something like that, or I probably need to go to corporate or go to like a different business or something like that, or a different nonprofit or something.
So like, just thinking about just our audience and our listeners and shit like that. If you went through this system at academia in a later stage in life, like you've started to finish in your late 20s, early
like
30s,
yeah.
Right? Versus like going to college and doing the same kind of like a process and an application of like ideas into other arenas. Do you think that would even happen for you? Or was that even a thing for you? Like, were you doing the same thing?
No.
Is it because
I wasn't.
Is it because of the life experience you had, or like your career experience?
It's definitely the life experience I've had. Like, it's definitely the life experience I had. So you actually brought up a good point when you talked about like if I was a college student and stuff like that. Like, so I'm gonna ask you the same question later too. But so if I had like a chance to redo college, like how would I approach it? Like it would be a lot different right now. Yeah. Like part of me thinks like part of me thinks I should just went to an art school. That's the number one thing.
But we talked about this in off-air conversations. Like it's hard to be an artist in San Diego for one.
It is.
I mean, shout out to my friends who have achieved so much.
Yeah, you guys put in work. I didn't put in work.
Yeah,
that's why you guys deserve it. I'm complaining because I didn't put in work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's people who've done it, but it's also like the starving artist struggle. Like we know that it was going to be hard to be artists and creatives in San Diego without, at least in our like youth centered minds, like without selling out, quote unquote.
I chose security.
That's what I'm saying. Like we chose security. Like it's some sort of like security, right?
Right. I agree. So, you and Rena read a lot, right?
We do more of the audiobooks because they're very easier to consume.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, yes. Do you guys? Okay, you guys intake like a lot of information a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think necessarily reading all those books like are super beneficial, or do you feel like sometimes it's just like regurgitated information?
I find that the really good stuff is appeals to my intellect in a very simple way that it merely tells me something that I already knew.
Right.
So like for example, like when I was reading up on keto or any kind of like diet that's non-processed food based, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the principles are like, yeah, like we're eating too much fucking sugar, we're eating fucking too much bread, salt, we're not drinking enough water, eat more vegetables, lay back from fried food. You're like, oh yeah, that's actually makes a lot of sense because we're fucking we don't move as
the
much.
American diet.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, it tells me things I knew, but it's like, yeah, actually, if you just do this, you'll lose like X amount of weight, and I'm addicted to fucking sugar, like a lot of Americans and shit.
So do you think a lot of these like quote unquote like self-help or self-improvement books are kind of like ways of people telling their story?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, for example, I know we use Gary Vee a lot here. Gary Vee has a very distinct way of presenting the information that also Seth Godin fucking presents the same information.
Right.
It's about just committing and finding a niche product and going all in on that. Or finding rather a niche audience and presenting them with a service or a product that helps them get better or something that you truly believe in, right? But like Seth Godin has a very like tempered approach and a very like I don't want to say wisdom like, but it's very measured versus Gary Vee is like appeals to like some sort of like visceral emotion or like it's like he's like a fucking salesman, you know, he's a really good salesman because he fucking appeals to a lot of emotion.
That is a very good point, actually. I like the way you broke that down. Yeah, because like they both like they're both echoing the same thing, and it's just funny. A lot of people will echo the same thing. It could usually be like right up to find your niche, go hard on it, and put in the work.
It's literally the same thing, but just appeals to a different like
generation in a way. So, like Seth Godin will apply to like a lot of like older people, but then Gary Vee will apply to a lot of younger people.
Because of the way that Seth Godin is very measured, or like even Tim Ferriss, you know, they come from that same kind of cloth where it's very measured. Whereas Gary Vee, that's why Gary Vee appeals to a lot of the youth, a lot of rappers, a lot of artists, because it's very visceral and it's kind of like that motivating persona that he uses.
Right. So I think it's kind of interesting lately that he has like people like accused of him of like work like Gary Vee is like promoting like working yourself to the bone kind of thing, right? But then he had to like defend himself on that. He's like, no, not like that. Like that's not what I'm not trying to say work 20 hours a day or something like that. Like you got to take care of yourself. You got to know your priorities and whatnot. So I think it's really, really interesting. Like when you compare those two together, I think that actually made a lot more sense. So I was wondering, like, if like, so maybe I'll ask you one. What out of all the books you read, like, if you could choose one that kind of like summed like all the different concepts, like, what would you like have people read? Like, if you're like fresh out of high school, like if you had a nephew or something like that. Like my situation, for example.
What's up, Re-Upped?
You gotta do work, man.
I fucking shout out everybody.
Everyone's just shouting out. So, like, because I remember my nephew and like actually one of my friends asked me, he was like, "Dude, what should I read?" Like, they asked me one day, like, "You read a lot. Like, what should I read? Like, what do you think's gonna like get me started in life or whatever, something like that?" I was like, "That is a very interesting question." I guess that was like the biggest inspiration for me to write for this episode.
Oh, okay. Because what was the book that you?
So that was hard. Like I had to go through like so many different books. And like, okay, I think the best book I want people to read, like if I could like tell one person or tell people to read, is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Okay.
And I think everything else is just one of those 7 habits, but like told through someone else's story. So that's like one. The Personal MBA is another book I would actually recommend for people who like want to be like self-sufficient entrepreneur kind of thing, like people who kind of like want to create something. I think like whether you're an artist or a businessman, I think you should read like the Personal MBA. Then like if you know nothing about finances, I think you should read I Will Teach You How to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And he just released a 10-year anniversary recently. So that's actually like a really good book. Like if you know nothing about finance.
Well, that's a great time to plug audibletrial.com/difficult to please. JV's recommendations. They are in the show notes. And
you can actually get all these books on Audible too.
Hey! So sign up at audibletrial.com/difficult to please for your free trial.
Yeah, you get 2 free. You get 1 free Audible book, and I think 1 original with your free trial. So check it out.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
JB was talking about, or he was asking my recommendation for a book to a like a like someone is fresh out of high school, like a 19-year-old,
or someone
somebody
who
in college.
needs like that next push forward.
Yeah. So one book I would recommend is the Fresh Off the Boat memoir by Eddie Wong. Yeah, because this was right before he got like super famous, right? So a lot of the book contextualizes what he went through. Not only what was fictionalized from the TV show, but growing up and being a teenager, and him going to law school, and then him finding his way into New York, being in the streetwear scene, and then finally opening up his restaurant Bauhaus in New York, and having this kind of tie to hip hop culture, and being a part, and like he brought all that experience of being this Chinese kid that was originally from the DC area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, DMV, and then moved to Orlando into this rich, middle class Jewish neighborhood, and then said, "Fuck it, I'm going to law school in Pittsburgh," and then said, "Fuck it, I'm actually gonna go to New York and practice law there and fucking open up a restaurant." So it's very inspiring, and that's why for me, I attach myself a lot to that book, because the way that he presented himself in the book, the way that he approached his story was very authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you ever read Eddie Wong's like tweets or his blogs or anything that's written from him, that's like its entire book. So it's very easy to read, and there's a lot of like streetwear references, that because he did at one time also make t-shirts and shit when he was living in New York,
right? And
he was hustling on digital Gravel, so it was like a long time ago and shit.
Nice.
So that's one book. It's inspiring, just to be like, oh, okay, like this dude, he is not from New York, but he just like embraced New York and just fucking did it. He's not a chef. Like he in the book, he explicitly states like why he at least beefed with
other famous chefs and stuff.
Fuck. Well, I know it. David Chang. Like why he beefed with David Chang.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting.
So a lot of it's because of like people, when he came up doing Bauhaus, and the Baus, they compared his Baus to David Chang. He's like, fuck, I don't want to be compared. Like, I'm fucking me. Like, I'm not French trained. I'm just a Chinese dude cooking.
Yeah, like it's like kind of like putting like street food against like a formally trained person. That makes sense.
And then The Purple Cow is fucking like one of the first Seth Godin books I ever read.
That was the first set.
So it's a lot of, in terms of running a business and trying to get yourself to a point where you want to find yourself above the noise. It's a great way of kind of introducing you to an idea, like how you can approach that.
Word. Especially
like in streetwear. Like I know we talk about a lot about streetwear and Supreme. It's like, and there's always going to be brands popping up every year, every day. I get served a fuck ton of Instagram ads still, for streetwear.
Gosh, I hate Instagram ads.
Yeah, right. I get served all the fucking time, especially these like anime fucking streetwear brands. It's really weird.
Like bait and stuff?
No, like, it's like anime apparel. Like it's like these takes on like Dragon Ball and like One Piece and One Punch Man.
Like it's like the back of a Spencer's or Hot Topic kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just like it's not as cool, but I mean it is what it is. But yeah,
there's too much going on.
Yeah, and just to go back to back up real quick about the just the Purple Cow, and you can apply that to how you can approach yourself to applying to new jobs. How do you stand out when your resume is just a bunch of words? Like you gotta fucking like find a way. Yeah, you gotta separate yourself from your cover letter to your job application, resume, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You like memoirs, huh?
Memoirs for me, especially in the audio book form, because they're very digestible because it's like, oh,
it's someone's life.
It's someone's life, and they're just talking about their life. It's basically a blog.
Yeah, I think that's why I've been kind of getting into more memoirs lately. I love listening about people's lives. It's I think that's what I like about the Ground Up show too, because another podcast. But shout out. But yeah, like I love the fact I love hearing other people's stories. Like it's sick to me. Like I love hearing like what sacrifices people had to make to like do what they do, and like that's why I'm okay with where I'm at now, because I remember there was one time I had like this problem, like, man, I should have done that earlier. I should have just done that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not in a rush to just do it.
I think just to riff on that, it's I think part of being in your like 30s is like finding this peace. You're getting closer to a peace that you didn't really achieve or get to in your 20s. That's like, oh, like I could have done that. Why didn't I do that?
Right?
Oh well, like, but it's like I'm here now, man. Like, fuck, we just do it.
And I give it to like I give so much props to people who just did it in their 20s, who like fucking like was kind of fearless about it.
Yeah,
which is sick. Like that's like one thing I wish I had, but then I'm like, well, okay, whatever. Now, like that season's passed.
Yeah, and then you can just build upon it.
Right. So I had 7 books. I had 4 so far. I think next 4 would be like Essentialism by Greg Woodgraven or something. I'll put it in the show notes. And then like The Power of Habit by James Clear. Okay, Reptar. And then like did you ever listen to The War of Art yet? The one I told you. Yeah, you didn't like the voice.
Like I in my Audible I have War of Art, but then I swear that they use like a stock dude to read audiobooks because it sounded very the same rhythm as the philosophy of not giving a fuck.
Oh yeah.
I was like, shit, it's the same dude. I'm like,
I don't like this. It's boring. It's a great book, but it's boring.
I'm like, fuck, I might have to like actually read it.
Got it. Yeah, so I think like, the 7th book would be like, I wouldn't even actually
the Bible. I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm sorry, the Quran
or anything. I don't know, any religious textbook. The Eightfold Path. I'm just kidding.
7-stage path. 7-path sage.
Stupid. You dumb. Just kidding.
Everything is about anime and nerdism here. Gotta get back to the fucking core values of this podcast.
Speaking of nerd, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah. So those 6 books, I would like. I think like everyone should read just to like if you really don't know like where to go or something like that, or like for what you should have your next chapter in life. I think like those would give you like a good idea, give you like a foundation basis and whatnot.
I think there's a book coming out soon by Bobby Hundreds.
It's already out.
Is it?
I think it's already
out.
It's
pre-ordered. No?
Oh, still pre-ordered? I was about to actually mention that. Like, are you gonna get the Bobby Hundreds book? Because he's doing the audiobook too.
Yeah. I'm actually more interested in getting the actual book, like the hardcover.
Why? Not on the Kindle? Why?
For me, like, I'm just a fucking purist about books. Like, if I really wanted a book, I'll fucking buy the book. Like, I have Eddie Wong's books in paper form.
If I had a place, I'd definitely have coffee table books, and that would be on there.
Yeah,
along with Pharrell's books too. Which I don't know how it disappeared. I think my brother has it, so I can ask him. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like I was watching Full Size Run, the Complex show, right before you got here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just briefly mentioning in his book how he and Ben had a lot of tension surrounding their move to distribute at Zoomies at the malls and shit like that.
Okay.
And they're just, it was like a big point of contention just because it went against the idea of exclusivity, which drives a lot of what streetwear is, right?
Right.
Like you can only get, at one point in time, you can only get the hundreds either at the flagship or one of the skate shops, right?
Right.
Versus like...
That's how street culture kind of is, yeah.
Yeah.
So is it because they thought Zoomies and all that was like too commercial? Like, is too much to the masses? Or
it was like it went. It was like the conflict was the values of what the hundreds is in streetwear, but then when you look at the bottom line, it's like he was saying how like this was before e-commerce was big, and that like how do you get your product in front of the people who are going to buy it, but you're putting a cap on yourself because you're running against like this exclusivity. Like it's different, obviously. Now I hate talking about Supreme, but we always fucking talk about Supreme. Like,
right.
Like how you can only buy Supreme from either the stores or online. But then it's like the hundreds was never about that super exclusivity.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Get his book too.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Let's wrap up. We're at 56 minutes.
Yep. You got any over-unders? Toronto.
Toronto as a city?
No, Toronto Raptors.
Toronto as a city is probably underrated.
Yes, very underrated.
Toronto Raptors are... They're still underrated, man.
You rooting for them?
Of course, man. I'm not going to root for the Warriors. I'm anti-Warriors. I've told this to people who don't understand my fandom about like when I don't have a pony in a race. It's like I'm just anti-dynasties.
Okay.
That's why I'm anti-Patriots. I'm like, fuck, I don't care about the Patriots because they're a dynasty.
Oh,
I don't want them to win anymore.
I thought you were going to say something like, oh, it's Kawhi. That's why.
Well, obviously, that's like the layer part of it. Yeah, Kawhi Leonard, probably the greatest basketball player to come from San Diego State. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, that's what I was hoping you would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that would be the reason why. I was like, oh, everyone's
I mean, that's a big part of it, but the main reason is like, fuck, I was going to cheer against Milwaukee if they got into the fucking finals. Like, fuck, or cheer for Milwaukee.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So you're just like an anti-dynasty person.
And it's like if it was the Warriors and no, I'm sorry. If it was the Raptors and like the Trailblazers, I'm like, oh yeah, I best. Like, I'm gonna go with the Raptors because it's fucking Kawhi. But more of like right now, it's like, oh, it's because I'm not a Warriors fan.
Sick. Interesting answer. I like that one.
Yeah. What you got?
That's it. No? I just want to hear your thoughts about the NBA. Everyone's been talking about it lately. That's why.
You're like, oh, NBA basketball.
Basketball. Complex Con's in
Chicago.
Damn.
Chicago.
I wanted to go.
So they're not doing one Long Beach anymore.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It kind of sucks that it's Chicago. I mean, it's cool, but it's not cool.
It's cool that it's
somewhere else.
It's definitely not on the West Coast or the East Coast. It's like, oh, it's in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's Chicago. That's cool.
Yeah, Chicago's sick.
Chicago as a city, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Really? I think it's overrated.
Why?
I don't know. I've been there twice and it's like, it's cool. I don't know if I want to go again.
Okay.
Like, pizza's good.
Okay.
Steak's good.
So it's like you'd be there for a weekend and that's it. You good with it?
Like, if I had just like the Tony Bourdain, rest in peace, like layover for 24 hours or whatever, less than 24, I'm like, yeah, I'd be good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe that's how.
Because it's like, I'd probably, if I was there for less than 24 hours, it's like, yeah, I'll get pizza. I'll get fucking a steak. I'll go to the Art Institute, check out the exhibits or whatever. And then I'm like, okay.
Good.
That's it.
So what about New York?
Shit, I don't know, man. Maybe just rated for me.
Just rated?
Just because, like, New York is bigger than Chicago, and there's just because, like, the neighborhoods are... I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself out of Chicago.
No, that's fine. If you think...
maybe, no. I just wanted... Like, I've never been to all the boroughs in New York, so I'm like, I don't know, dude.
No clear opinion?
No clear opinion, just because...
Even though we've been there like a couple of years already.
That's like we've been there. We've been to New York at the same time. Like fucking, I'd probably go again.
Yeah, I'll
Just
go
because
again.
like
I'll go to New York.
it's not. I feel like even when I visit New York, it's the like one time, 2 times.
I mean, I've visited like 3 times so far.
Oh shit! Yeah, you visited more than me.
I flew out just to see an art gallery. Come on, man.
The Murakami show, right?
Mister
show.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapping it up.
Yeah.
You got this. You want me to do it?
You got it. I'm just listening to you.
Well, in this episode, we're talking about the idea of wokeness and this prevailing thought on social media that you can be too woke just because you're like lost in the weeds about your own criticism or other people's criticism. That sometimes you forget about the larger picture.
Correct.
Talks about in education, JB's experience with academia and how it was helpful at a time.
But it's also what he just had to say. There's other methods of approaching like a different stage in your life. Like you don't need to go to academia. It's good for you, like for what you want, and like if that's your path there, then yeah, take it. But there are different routes. Don't think that a 4-year college is the answer. And
we recommended some books.
Yeah.
Read a book.
Or
listen to a book.
Didn't they say that in what's his name? Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. He's like, dude, you can educate yourself in a library and like be just as knowledgeable as like.
Yeah, he did say that.
Something like that. I don't know the exact quote. That's not the exact quote.
No, I totally understand. I remember that. I think his character might have been talking to
Robin Williams.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
And this episode was about JV wrestling the idea of woke and like
this is fucking JV's therapy session, basically.
This is my therapy session. So thank you. It really makes me rethink about the concept of too woke.
Oh my god!
And self-enriching. I separated two, even though they were actually the same thing.
Oh. All right. Well, I'm gonna eat this chicken sandwich from Helen Ray's. All right, later. Thank you. Peace.